we go. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. The process that we're going to go through tonight is kind of introduce who I am and why I do what I do. And the first thing is I have over 30 years in the fire service. And in those 30 years, I spent 15 of them as a chief officer and 6 of them as a company officer in the second busiest fire department in the state of California. So I got to burn down a lot of buildings in my career. And I was in charge of quite a few burn downs. Made some mistakes, hopefully learned from those mistakes. But it was a good career, and I learned a lot, and I hopefully didn't repeat the same mistake twice. So command is a perishable skill. And if you don't use this perishable skill, you'll lose it. And so we want to make sure that you are continually using that perishable skill. And I'm trying to do as much eye contact with you as I possibly can, but I'm working off some notes here that I wanted to discuss before we start doing the process. So because command is a perishable skill, we have to practice it. And if we don't practice it, we don't get very good at it. And then we take a vacation and then we lose some of that every time. So we need to practice that. So I saw that as an opportunity, one, to give back to the fire service that gave so graciously to me for 30 years, and still gives to me today, and then and also to be able to pass this on to others and let them use this and do the skills that I enjoy. So what I did was I built 500 simulations, and I'm building more every day. In those 500 simulations, we use single-family dwellings, multi-family dwellings, commercial, industrial, hazmat, high-rise, and some wildland. So there's, like I said, there's over 500 of them. If your organization decides to subscribe to this process, we'll put your target hazards on there so that you can practice with your own buildings. So tonight we're going to go through a simulation. I'm going to do it. I'm going to be the guy that's running the sim, that's being the guinea pig, and then we will go from there to kind of discussing it. I'm going to ask some questions to see if I covered it, looking for some feedback, and if I can get that. But I'm not telling you that the way I'm doing it is the only right way to do it. It's not. There are lots of ways that you can fight a fire. And a lot of them are right. There are some that are wrong. Basically, you have like 4 options. You can do the right task and the right tactic, and things are going to come out well for you, and you're going to be successful. If you do the wrong task but the right tactic, things are going to turn out okay. If you do the right task but the wrong tactic, maybe or maybe not. But if you do the wrong task and the wrong tactic, that's where people get hurt. People die from that. We lose victims. We lose firefighters. We injure firefighters, and we want to minimize that. And so in that process, we want to go through that. So let's break down again what the simulator does. One, it takes you from dispatch, and you go through your dispatch center and your dispatch protocol, and it's going to be your unit numbers. You're going to put those in there. And then you're going to be driving down the street with a column of smoke coming up. You're going to arrive on scene. You're going to give that initial radio report. Then we're going to go and do a 360 around the building. And we want you to give a secondary size based on the findings of that 360. And one of the things that we do that's different than a lot of other people is we talk a really good game in the fire service about doing this 360. But do we ever tell you what to look for? And so we're trying today to tell you what to look for. And there's 5 little things that we're going to look for, like design and construction features. Is it the same on the Alpha side as it is on the Charlie side? We're going to look at entry and egress points. How are we getting in? How are we getting out? And how's the public getting in and out? We're going to look at the flow path and how's that fire traveling throughout that building. We're also going to look at So whether it's bidirectional or unidirectional, and how to reach that. So that's the conditions found. The conditions are like, is it a structure fire? Is it a room of contents? Is it an attic? Is it a basement? And then we get to the survivability profile. And we talk a really good game about that, but what does that mean? So we have a little process that we go through. If you've got smoke coming out of the top third of a window, then that's a survivable atmosphere for anybody that doesn't have PPE, or pretty close to being a survivable atmosphere. So we're going to enter and get into that process and say that's positive, and we're going to take a risk, the risks that we usually take, right? Risk a little to save a little, risk a lot to save a lot. Well, we're going to risk a lot in a calculated manner in that situation where we only have smoke coming out of the top third of the window. When we have smoke coming out of 2/3 of the window or fire coming out of the top third, then it's marginal. So we're going to have to do some protective actions before we actually enter that room. And so that will then determine how much we're going to risk. So that's risk a little to save a little. Then, because the chances of somebody with fire or smoke coming out of 2/3 is less than it is if it's coming out of a third. If we've got fire coming out of 2/3 or smoke coming out of the bottom of half the window, there is very little chance that anybody's alive in there, to a point where I'm not going to risk your life or mine to enter that room. Now, that doesn't mean we can't enter the rest of the building. It's just that room where that fire is, or where that's presenting itself, is not tenable. So then we go from that 360 to, we want you to give your report on that, and then start assigning your units, putting them to work, putting the crews to work. When you put your crews to work, you want to do a tactical. Actually, I'm not even in the chat room, so I got to get in there. If you have any questions, please chat them down. So I lost where I was. So when we're doing that 360, we're giving them assignments. Some of the things that we should give them is what their area of responsibility is, what the expectations are, what their tactical objectives are, and what success looks like. From there, about the time you get done assigning those units, you're going to get an incident within the incident. And it can be anything from as major as a mayday to as minor as we've ran out of or lost our water supply. And the incident commander is going to have to deal with that process. And then we're going to do a transfer of command. So the next level of supervision showed up. We're going to do that transfer of command. All of this up to that point, when you're in the program and not in this little webinar training session that we're in, is recorded. And that recording will then allow you to go back and compare your performance to 25 to 30 questions that we're going to ask you. And we will do that tonight. We'll ask you some of those questions and verify that I did what I should have done. So if you go through that process and you answer those questions based on the recorded information, based on your policies, procedures, your tactics and strategy, your staffing model, and the like, that is where we will improve. And then at the end of each simulation, there is things that we talk about. We're going to do a slicers review. So and that is the size up, the location of the fire, the interior flow path, the cooling that fire space from a safe location, extinguishing the fire. Is extinguish the fire, R, rescue, and S, salvage. So slicers, size up, location, interior flow path. C, cool from a safe location. E is extinguish the fire, R is rescue, S is salvage. So and then we'll go through each one of those and kind of tell you what we think is, what the flow path is, what the survivability process is in every one of our 500 sims. And then we're going to talk a little bit about era of construction, fire prevention codes, and building construction, and how that's going to affect that fire behavior. And so then that's also on each one of those 500. So without further ado, why don't we start a simulation and go through it and have you take a look at that.
Commercial structure fire at 23457, 23457 Simpson Drive. Only one reported this time.
Dispatch Engine 1 on scene of a large two-story restaurant with smoke and fire showing from the roof. Engine 1 is going to establish a water supply, stage attack lines, and attempt to reset the fire. All first alarm units, level 1 stage until I complete a 360. Dispatch, start me a second alarm, have them level 2 stage at 1st and Broadway. This will be the Broadway incident. I will be Broadway IC.
Chester 1960. Yeah. 88 South, 133 Karen 559, Karen 1605. 282.
All units on the Broadway incident, secondary size-up report. This is a modern constructed restaurant with entry and egress points on all 4 sides. It appears to be a room and contents fire on the 2nd floor of the Charlie side. Survivability profile is marginal in the area of origin and positive throughout the rest of the structure. Engine 2, I'm going to make you fire attack. Your tactical objectives are fire attack, primary search, and check for extension. It appears that your best access is on the Alpha side after the 360, and your 2 out or IRIC has been established. Engine 3, I'm going to make you exposure group. I want you to assess and protect the exposures on the Bravo, Charlie, and Delta side. And be my eyes on the Charlie side as I don't have anybody back there. Engine 4, your RIC group, I want you to soften the building and prepare for forcible exit. You have one company who has entered the Alpha side with a crew strength of 4. Their identifier is Engine 2, and he is also fire attack group. Truck 1, you're going to be the vent group. I want you to catch the utilities and evaluate for possible ventilation. Let me know which way of ventilation you would like to use, and also coordinate with interior. Dispatch from Broadway IC. We are going to be in the offensive mode. I need you to start the incident clock and let me know when 10 minutes has passed. Also need PD for traffic control and scene security, public health for a fire in a restaurant, and a fire investigator for cause and origin. Fire tech, can you give me a report on your conditions, actions, and needs? The report that I would anticipate receiving here is that it's hot in here. We are advancing, and we could use another couple companies as resources. I see Captain Edwards. We've had a building collapse. We are trapped under debris. We have some large building headers and stuff. We're going to need chainsaws and some lifting equipment to get this stuff off of us. Captain Edwards, a copy that you need some assistance. I'm going to leave you with your crew and replace you on your current assignment. RIC Group, I anticipate that you copied the traffic from interior, that they are trapped under debris. Last seen entered on the Alpha side. I'm going to give you truck 2, which is in staging right now, and engine 21, which is coming on the second alarm. Let me know if you need any other resources to get this done. Dispatch from Broadway IC. Start me 3 ambulances and a third alarm assignment. Break. Engine 22 in staging. I want you to be the medical group. I want you to set up on the Alpha side of the building. Your tactical objectives are triage, treatment, and transport. Engine 23. I'm going to make you fire attack group. Your tactical objectives are fire attack, primary search, and checking for extension. You are going to be replacing Engine 2, who is currently trapped.
Pause the simulation and record a transfer of command report.
Hey boss, a transfer of command report. Well, when we arrived on this large 2-story restaurant, we had smoke and fire, which was coming, what we thought was from the roof, but after the 360, we found out that it was a room and contents fire coming from the Charlie side on the second floor. Let's see. This is a modern constructed restaurant with entry and egress points on all 4 sides. It appears to be room and contents from the second floor on the Charlie side, and the survivability profile is marginal in that area of origin and positive throughout the rest of the structure. Currently, we have Engine 2's crew trapped under some construction materials. Looks like they had a partial collapse. The Engine 23 has taken over as fire attack group. Their tactical objectives are fire attack, primary search, and checking for extension. Engine 3 is doing exposure protections on all 4 sides. We have the RIC group, which is led by Engine 4. They also have assigned to them Truck 2 and Engine 21 to help do that rescue. Their tactical objectives were to soften the building and prepare for forcible exit. We also have the vent group, who was catching the utilities and basically assessing for a ventilation. And then once we had the collapse, we established a medical group, which is Engine 22, whose tactical objectives are to triage, treat, and transport. I called for a second alarm and a third alarm, and currently we have in staging Engine 24, Truck 21, and Truck 22. We've also called for a PD for traffic control and scene security, public health because it's a restaurant, and a fire investigator for cause and origin. My plan is when the third alarm units start to arrive, I'm going to augment fire attack and possibly RIC if they don't have them out. I don't want to cut myself short right now because my tactical reserves are only 3 units. So we're back live here again, and the questions that come after that is what comes next after that transfer of command report. Did you do initial report on conditions? And I did. It consisted of quite a few things. One would be, did your initial report include the size of the building? Yeah, it was a large. And we come up with a way to describe small, medium, large, extra large. And what we use there is a small building is something that first alarm or that first company can search by themselves. There's a NFPA 1710 has a set of skills that needs to be done that will items that need to be accomplished by the first arriving company. if it takes two companies to do that search, then doesn't it make sense that if it's going to take two to do the search, it's going to take two to do the ventilation? It's going to take two to do exposure protection. So it's doubling that amount. And so if it's a small, the first alarm can handle it. If it is a medium-sized building, then it's going to take a second alarm, and a large is going to take a third, and so on and so on. So that's how we come up with the size. Height of the building. Well, again, we're going to go back to NFPA. NFPA identifies first 1 through 3 floors we're going to fight the same way. 4 through 7 is a mid-rise, and above 7 is a high-rise. And so that's how we want to identify those as far as that height of the building. Then the occupancy type. Occupancy type predicts fire loading. And so we will continue to use that fire loading process to decide how much GPM we need to flow, which then increases the amount of resources that we need. And then our initial actions well, first of all, on this specific scenario, it was a large 2-story restaurant. And then our initial actions were we're going to establish a water supply, stage attack lines, and attempt to reset the fire. And the reset is that straight stream for 10 to 15 seconds into the heated space to try to create a sprinkler system, if you will, and knock some of the heat out of that. And it gives you some time to get in there and get your hose lines in place. It's not as bad as what everybody says. Oh, you're cutting off the fun part of the job. You're doing this, you're doing that. Well, if our job is to rescue people inside the building, don't we want to give them a better opportunity to survive? And I was fortunate enough to be at the testing that was being done by NIST and UL, some of the testing that they've been done, and I got to observe it. And I watched them do that with the thermocouples, and I watched the temperature drop. So to me, it's not that far of a reach to say that if I put a few gallons of water into the heated atmosphere that's going to knock that heat out and control that flow path, that the people inside have a better chance to survive. So, and that's what we are there for, was to get them to survive. So that's why we kind of talk about fire loading. Or the occupancy type, the witness conditions, what we saw. Well, from that first picture, I saw smoke coming from what I thought might be the roof. So but it wasn't. When we did the 360, that's when I identified that it wasn't on the roof. But from the first glance, it looked like it was from the roof. And so we always want to make sure that we do that 360. The next one is include resource needs. Well, it was a large, and it had some pretty good smoke coming from it. And so a large says, I got to start right away with getting some people coming because I can't get them there any faster. But I don't want to be delayed because I didn't call them. I would rather turn them around. And in my area, we had almost 1,000 firefighters on duty every day. And about 90% of them want to go to a fire. The other 10% are retired in place. So we want to make sure that we have enough resources there. And if you go to my command tips of the week, I kind of go through each one of these in the process. So, but if you go to www.scottgoodwinassociates.com, you can sign up for the command tip of the week, and we can go through each one of these and some other things. I've got probably 100 on the drawing board to do. I have 25 of them done already, and I release them one a week. And it's going to give you good information to help you make good decisions on the fire ground. Now, I'm not going to say that I know everything about everything, because I don't. But it's something to think about, and maybe something to ask yourself is, does this make sense? Then the next one, the resource needs, and then did you establish a command post? Well, I didn't establish a command post. I identified who was in command, because at that point in that fire, with the amount of resources that we had there on scene, I was going to be mobile command. I still have to do work. I still have to get that 360 done. So I didn't identify where the command post was, and that may be an error on my part. The next thing is, did I do a 360? Well, I did a 360, and on the simulations, I kind of force you to do a 360 because every simulation, every structure fire simulation has a 360 to do because it takes you through there. And my thought process behind that when I was building the sims is we talk a really good game about doing a 360, but we don't always get it accomplished. And so I wanted to make that information available to you on the simulation, whether you did it or not. So that way, hopefully, when you get on the real incident, if you don't have that information, you'll feel naked and you'll go take care of it and get that done. So did you do a 360? Did your 360 address design and construction features? Well, on this particular building, the design and construction features were consistent throughout the whole building. It was a modern, lightweight constructed restaurant. And so it is the typical way things in the modern era are being built for restaurants. And so what we don't want is to have it have on the front side be a facade and it look like modern restaurant. And on the back side, it's poured in place concrete. That's going to affect the way that our tactics and strategy. So we want to identify what that is. A class that I once went to, identified a gentleman. His name was Captain Gary Morgan from LA County. And they did a 360, but the 360 didn't get communicated. And what happened is Gary didn't know that there was an old Victorian house that was wrapped around by a commercial building. And he exited the showroom of this glass warehouse and entered onto the pavement, and he thought the roof had been burned off. He stepped up onto what he thought was a loading dock, turned out to be a porch around this old Victorian house, and he fell into the basement, and they activated Rick and actually saved his life. And he, last time I saw him give a presentation on it and about how that 360 is important and how knowing your environment is important, and he had a hard time with it. Unfortunately, he has succumbed to some injuries and some cancer, and he has passed away, and God rest his soul. But he taught me a lot about that 360, and so I hated the fact that he had to go through that, but I was glad I had gotten the opportunity to meet him and to share he could share his experiences with me. Because it helps me help teach you. So the entry and egress points. So we want to identify how we're getting in and how we're getting out, which may be different than what the public uses. And because if the public comes in one way, they're probably going to go out that same way. And we need to find another way to get out, like the station fire in Rhode Island, where all the people that were in the concert tried to get out. And they blocked the exit, and it created a large loss of life because of inaccurate exits, and the firefighters couldn't get into the building to actually put the fire out. Did I discuss the conditions found? Was this a room and contents fire? Was it a structure fire? Was it a basement? Or was it an attic? And I did identify that I thought it was a room and contents based on smoke conditions and fire conditions and the way that smoke was traveling and its location. Did I addressed interior fire travel path? And I believe I called it a unidirectional in that, in the importance of a unidirectional versus a bidirectional. A unidirectional is almost got an unlimited supply of oxygen, which allows that fire to grow. The bidirectional is competing for the same space to get that oxygen and get the heat out. And so a bidirectional is going to grow, but it's going to grow at a slower pace than a unidirectional for the most part. And that's really a simplification of the science behind it. But oxygen and fuel, if you have an unlimited supply of oxygen, that fire is going to grow unimpeded. And so that's why we want to know if it's bidirectional or unidirectional. And if we can control that flow path, if we can shut down the oxygen supply, we can shut down that fire. and then the flow path about where it was going, which direction it was going. Well, it was going up and out of that seaside building on the second floor. And I didn't do a really good job, I don't think, of describing that, but it could have been better. Did my 360 redefine incident priorities? Well, the first thing that it did when we looked at it, in my mind, was that incident priority was it was not a roof fire, but it was a room and contents fire on the second floor. And so that kind of changed my priorities a little bit, is that if it was an attic fire, then my priority was, or a roof fire, then I didn't have a life safety issue as much. But if it's inside the structure and it's a room and contents fire, then my life safety issue in an occupied restaurant does increase. Next question. Did I communicate the overall objectives to all personnel on the fire ground? There is one section in there where I said we are in an offensive attack. And so I wanted to confirm that everybody knows. Even though I was giving offensive assignments, I wanted to confirm that everybody understood that this is an offensive attack. Did you identify and name appropriate work groups? My process puts everybody into a division or group. And I do that because, first of all, practice makes perfect. And if you only institute the incident command system with divisions and groups on the big incidents, then there's not really much chance to practice. So I like to do it on the small incidents. Now, I may only have one unit in that division. And in this case, the ventilation group had one unit. The the exposure group had one unit, but they were still groups and divisions. So that's something that I like to do. You don't have to do that, but I want you to get used to practicing it. Did you maintain situational awareness? Well, pretty much. I think I did. I had some benchmarks that were in my mind that if this happened, then I was going to pull people out. But the fire had to grow, and I was getting close with that collapse. I wanted to get more time to speak with the interior division or the fire attack group, and find out what collapsed, how did it collapse, and is it safe or tenable to be in there, but not until I got my people out. Let's see. Did your sequential actions include slicers, which it did, size up, locate the fire, identify the flow path, cool from a safe location, extinguish, rescue, and salvage? I didn't get to salvage, but I got to everything else. And my tactical objectives addressed RECIO. Well, fire attack had fire attack, primary search, and checking for extension. So fire attack and primary search means extinguishment and rescue. They're identifying, and if they need more resources to get that done, then I will give them to them. So the RECIO extinguishment is part of fire attack. Overhaul we didn't get to, and salvage we didn't get to. But those are later on down the road. But we would have gone through there. Was I prepared for the incident within the incident? That's why I had people in second alarm. I always order enough resources to have tactical reserves to handle any issue that comes up. And so we want to make sure that we do that. Did your transfer of command, or did I do periodic personnel accountability reports? No. And I messed that one up. I should have done a couple of PARs, during that process, especially after I got the report of the building collapse. And I didn't do that, and that was a mistake. Did you give effective transfer of command report? Yeah, I think that the new boss knew exactly what my intentions were, where I was going with this, what my plan was, and what I was going to do next. I think that is a good transfer of command report. When I receive a transfer of command report like that, what's probably going to happen with me is that officer is going to go into operations, and I'm going to go into command and just take over the stuff like that nobody wants to do, the PIO, dealing with the city council, the public, talking with the fire chief, making sure that the units or all the stations in the city are covered, those kind of things. So that's that good transfer of command report. Did my transfer of command report include unity of command? Yeah, it was. Engine 2 was in fire attack until he was relieved by Engine 23. I think it was 23. And did my transfer of command include the tactical objectives assigned to each? Yes, it did. It fire attack had fire attack primary search checking for extension. Do you think that I've said that a few times in my career? Exposure group. Exposures, I want you to assess and protect the exposures. That's a key point right there. If you can get key phrases that you can use every single time you start assigning units, then that rolls off your tongue, and it makes you look like you got really good command presence, when in actuality it's almost canned speech. But I always fight the same fire, or I always fight fires the same way. Always going to have a fire attack. I always want them to be responsible for that, or I'm going to have an interior, or I'm going to have a division A. I'm going to call them whatever, but they're going to do fire attack primary search checking for extension. That's all the questions I have. Let me check and see if I have any questions up here, and I do not. And so I hope you continue to watch this. I wanted to make sure that you got to see that command is a perishable skill, and that the offer that we have. We would like you to subscribe to the simulation program and practice this perishable skill, because watching me do it and hear me talk about what we're supposed to do isn't making you any better. So we want you to practice it, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible to do that. And so if you subscribe to this, it's $40 a month. You get 500 sims. You can look at it 24/7, 365. There's no limit. You get to record yourself, and you get to practice your skills. And I challenge you to see if you can find buildings in my library that don't meet the buildings that you have in your jurisdiction. And so, but if you find that you don't have those kind of buildings, all you need to do is send me some pictures, and I'll build them and put them on there for you. You'll do me a favor, and I'll increase that library. And again, it's $40 a month. If you can get your training officer to sign up for that, if you just go to my website, scottgoodwinassociates.com, there is and go to the simulation program, you can look and see there's a link to a organizational membership. On that membership, it's $1,000 a year, and you get 15 licenses. So 15 of your officers can use that. It's called a station package. If you need multiple station packages, we can work that out, and we hope that we can get this out there to use this. Now, let me talk to you about the other simulation programs that are out there and how we differ. Now, I'm not going to badmouth them. I think that they both have really good the two major ones have really good projects. Digital Combustion and Sims You Share. But what they don't offer you is the education part. And you have to build your own sims. Well, now you're basing your sims on the skills of the guy that's learned the project. One of the issues with both of those programs, one is a little bit user-friendly, but it doesn't put out the quality so that you can actually read the smoke and read the fire and where it's going. The other one can put out the same type of fire, but it doesn't give you any training with it. And we pride ourselves on a team of development people. We're not programmers. We're guys that have actually crawled down the hallway and actually put out the fire, so we know what it looks like or what it's supposed to look like. And so that is that process. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. If you can look on underneath the replay, you can subscribe to the next one, which should be in about 2 weeks, and we'll do another simulation, doing another type of building, and we'll go through that again. And please tell your friends, and hope to see you again. Have a good night.